Sit down with me for a moment, my dear. There's a story you need to hear. This is the story of Emily, a woman who married into a family that never really let her in. For 10 years, she cooked the meals, hosted the holidays, watched the grandbaby, and tried to be good enough. Then, one Sunday, her mother-in-law looked her in the eye and said, "You're not real family." Emily didn't scream. She didn't cry. She quietly stepped back. Her husband noticed first, and that was where everything began to change. My name is Emily, and the day my mother-in-law told me I wasn't real family, I was standing over a sink full of her dishes. It was a Sunday after church. We were at Margaret's house, my husband Jake's childhood home. Same yellow walls, same heavy oak table, same framed school photos of Jake and his sister. Not one picture of our life on the wall. I just finished serving lunch to 8 people. Roast potatoes, green beans, salad. Everyone was in the living room now, watching the game, plates half finished. I stood at the sink, hot water running, scrubbing grease off a pan, when Margaret came in behind me. She set her empty plate on the counter and gave me that tight smile she always saved for me. "You don't have to do all of this, you know," she said. "Yes, I do," I answered, "or it won't get done." She laughed softly. "Well, that's how it is when you marry into a family, dear. You pitch in." I bit my tongue. I'd been pitching in for 10 years. I rinsed the plate. She dried it, slow and careful, then said it like she was commenting on the weather. "Besides, you know you're not real family." The plate almost slipped from my hands. I turned. "Excuse me?" She shrugged. "You're married in. It's different. Blood is blood. When I say family, I mean my children." I stared at her. From the living room, I heard Jake laugh at something on TV. Our 7-year-old son, Noah, yelled, "Go, go," at the game. "I've been your son's wife for 10 years. I said quietly, I carried your grandson. I've spent every holiday here. What does that make me?" She folded the dish towel. "A guest," she said. "A permanent guest, I suppose. But not, not like us." Something inside me went very still. I didn't throw the plate. I didn't shout. I just looked at her for a long moment, this woman I bent myself into knots to please, and saw her clearly for the first time. "Okay," I said at last. "Thank you for clarifying." And in that moment, at her sink with prune fingers and a wet apron, I decided to believe her. If I was not real family, then I would stop acting like unpaid staff for hers. I finished the dishes, dried my hands, walked into the living room, and quietly stepped back from a job I'd never actually been hired for. Stepping back doesn't look dramatic from the outside. There was no announcement, no speech, no social media post. It started the next Sunday when Jake asked, "So, what are you making for Mom's lunch?" "Nothing," I said, stirring my coffee. He frowned. "What do you mean, nothing? We always bring a dish." "Then you cook something," I said. "I'm tired." He blinked like I'd spoken another language. Mom's not feeling great lately. You know she relies on you." I thought of the words over the sink. "You're not real family. Her real family can feed her," I replied. He laughed, waiting for the punchline. It never came. At Margaret's house, when the plates were cleared, I stayed seated. I watched as she gathered dishes with a tight jaw, muttering under her breath. Jake nudged me. "Are you going to help?" I looked at him. "Why?" I asked. "I'm just a guest." His eyes flicked to his mother, then back to me. That's when the first crack appeared. Later that week, Margaret called me. "Emily, I need a ride to my doctor's appointment on Thursday," she said. "Jake's working, and Jenna's busy with the twins." I checked my schedule. Normally, I would have rearranged my whole day. I can't, I said. I've got a staff meeting. Maybe Jake can figure something out. She went quiet. Since when are you too busy? She asked. Since I realized we're not real family. I said, you said it yourself. I'm sure your children will handle it. I hung up before she could answer. It felt wrong and right at the same time, like taking your hand off a hot stove and feeling the sting where you'd been burned. Come closer for a second. My dear, this is what I want you to notice. Emily didn't slam doors. She didn't run to Facebook to post a paragraph about toxic in-laws. She simply stopped doing unpaid work for a woman who had made it clear she didn't count. That isn't cruelty. That's alignment. From here on, she's not just hurt. She's watching. And when a woman starts watching instead of scrambling, the whole house feels it. Before we go further, you need to know what came before that sink. I married Jake when I was 27. He was sweet, funny, the type who remembered your coffee order and left notes on the fridge. The first time I met Margaret, she looked me up and down and said, "You're different than the girls he used to bring home." I didn't know if that was good or bad. I decided to take it as good. The little cuts started early. At our wedding, she insisted on planning the seating chart. She put her friends up front, my family in the back. When we bought our house, she walked through it with a sour look. "Jake could have done better if he'd waited," she muttered. "But you wanted to rush." When we struggled to get pregnant, she'd say things like, "Maybe your body just isn't meant for children. Some women are more career-focused." I was a school counselor. I worked with other people's kids all day. I went home to a quiet house and cried in the shower so Jake wouldn't see. When Noah finally arrived, after injections and hormones, and one miscarriage I thought would break me, she held him like he was hers alone. "My boy," she whispered. "My grandson. Finally, one of ours." I was standing right there. "Yours," I repeated, "and mine." She smiled without looking up. "Of course, dear." But when anyone asked about him, she'd say, "He has Jake's eyes, Jake's nose, Jake's temper." Like I was just the person who drove him there. I tried for 10 years to brush it off. "She's old-fashioned," Jake would say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." I told myself that one day she would soften, that one day she would say, "You're one of us now." Instead, I got, "You're not real family." And I believed her. It didn't take long for Margaret to notice something had shifted. The next week, I forgot to text in the family group chat about who was bringing dessert. Jenna, my sister-in-law, wrote, "What are we doing for Sunday, Mom?" Usually I jumped in. This time, I let my phone sit face down on the counter. An hour later, a message popped up from Margaret. "I guess some people are too busy now that they have a job." Jake laughed when he saw it. "She's joking," he said. "You were a guest." I thought, "Now you can act like one." I clicked on the chat info out of habit and saw something I'd never noticed before. Family blood, only 2 hearts. My name wasn't on the list. I wasn't even in that chat. This was a different one. Sunday Logistics, where I got tagged when they needed food or help. The real family chat, the one with the baby photos and inside jokes, didn't include me. I stared at the screen, my cheeks hot. When Jake came in from mowing the lawn, I asked, "Hey, what's the other chat called?" "The one without me." He froze for half a second. "It's just family stuff," he mumbled. "You know how Mom is. She made it years ago." "Blood only?" I asked. "Is that what it's called?" He winced. Don't make a thing out of this," he said. "It's just a name." "No," I said. "It's a rule." That night, I muted the Sunday Logistics chat. If they needed something, they could call their real family. A week later, I found another crack. I was going through our filing cabinet looking for Noah's vaccination card when I found the mortgage packet from when we refinanced the house 3 years ago. The top page said, borrower Jacob Wilson, CO borrower, blank. I remembered sitting in the bank office, Noah in his stroller, signing a stack of papers while Margaret sat in the corner. Do I need to sign anything? I'd asked. Jake had squeezed my hand. It's easier this way, he said. For the loan. You're on the deed. That's what matters. Margaret had chimed in, he's the provider, dear. It's just how banks see things. I flipped through the pages. Now, my name wasn't on the deed. Not anywhere. Just my handwriting filling out emergency contacts and school forms and PDA lists. When Jake came home, I held up the papers. Explained, I said. He rubbed the back of his neck. It's just how the bank did it. He said, I didn't want to call you out of work to come sign. Mom said what? I snapped. That it was normal, he finished weakly. That as long as we're married, it's all ours. My chest burned. As long as we're married, I repeated. He saw it land and flinched. It's not like that, he said. We're fine. I looked at him and saw a man who had let his mother sit between us at a bank and gnawed while I silently signed myself out of my own house. Quietly, I put the papers back in the folder. I wasn't going to scream. Screaming would let him think this was about emotions. This was about facts, and the facts were starting to pile up. My dear, I want you to see the pattern here. It's not one big betrayal. It's 1,000 small ones. A group chat you're not in. A mortgage you're not on. A comment over a sink that finally says out loud what everything else has been whispering. Women are told to calm down when they notice these things. Emily is not calming down. She's waking up. And once a woman is fully awake, the whole system she's been propping up starts to wobble. Noah turned 8 2 weeks later. He wanted a backyard party, hot dogs, water balloons, a dinosaur cake. I sent invitations to his classmates, planned games, made a list. Should we invite your mom? I asked Jake one night, neutral. Of course, he said. It's family. I wrote Margaret's name on the list. The morning of the party, she called me at 9. Emily, I'll bring the cake. She declared, I ordered something special from the bakery. You don't need to worry about it. I looked at the dinosaur pan on the counter, the one Noah had picked out with me. I've already made one. I said, he helped decorate the frosting yesterday. Margaret sniffed. Well, children don't know what they want. I've ordered a proper cake. It says Nana's Big Boy. He'll love it. I pictured my son's face seeing a cake with her name on it at his party that I'd planned. No, I said, bring a side dish if you want. We've got the cake. She went stiff. I could hear it over the phone. You're being rude, she said. I'm his grandmother. People expect me to do these things. You're his grandmother, I said, not the event coordinator. She hung up on me. She came to the party late, carrying a large bakery box anyway. When I brought out the dinosaur cake, Noah's eyes lit up. Mom, that's exactly like the picture. He said. Margaret frowned. We have another cake, she announced to the guests, lifting the lid. From Nana. Noah glanced at it, then at his friends, who were already leaning toward the dinosaur. Can we cut this one first? He asked, pointing to mine. Something in Margaret's face cracked. She smiled tightly. Of course, sweetheart. She set her cake on the side table, and no one touched it. Later, I found it still there, wilting under plastic wrap. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I had said no. The world had not ended. It was a Wednesday night when Jake finally said the words. You've changed. We were sitting on the couch. Noah was in bed. The dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. I was scrolling through job listings. Full-time counseling roles instead of the part-time patchwork I'd been doing around everyone else's schedules. Jake muted the TV. "You're distant," he said. "Cold." "I'm tired," I replied. "You've always been tired," he said, "but you didn't pull away like this." I set my phone down. "I stopped doing things nobody appreciated," I said. "Maybe that looks like pulling away to you." He frowned. "Mom says." I laughed once. "Of course she does." He shifted. "She says you're disrespectful lately, that you rolled your eyes at her Sunday, that you refused to help with the dishes." "I did refuse," I said. "She told me I'm not real family. Guests don't do kitchen duty, remember?" He went silent. "What?" I asked. "You didn't know she said that?" He shook his head slowly. "When?" he asked. I told him about the sink, about the way she'd said it like it was obvious. His jaw tightened. "She shouldn't have said that." He muttered. "She didn't just say it." I replied. "She believes it, so I believe her." He looked at me, really looked like he hadn't in a long time. "You're my wife," he said. "Of course you're family." "Then tell her that," I said, "because I'm done proving it." He didn't answer, but a storm had started in his eyes. And for the first time, it wasn't aimed at me. This is the moment in so many of your letters. The day my husband finally saw it. Not saw you, he's been looking at you the whole time. Saw her. Saw the way his mother's comfort has always been padded with your effort. It hurts him. Good. Discomfort is often the only thing that moves a man sitting in two chairs at once. From here, Jake has a choice to make, and his mother is not going to like it. 2 weeks later, the phone rang at 2 a.m. Jake answered, groggy. "Hello." I heard his, "Yes, okay, we'll be there." He hung up, already pulling on jeans. "Mom fell," he said. "She's at County General. They think she broke her hip." We drove in silence, the highway dark and empty. At the hospital, Margaret lay in a bed, hair flattened, face pale without makeup. "Jake," she whispered when we walked in. "Thank God." The nurse was useless. I went to the other side of the bed. "How are you feeling?" I asked. She looked past me to Jake. "They said I'll need surgery," she said. "And then rehab. They want to send me to some facility." But I told them, absolutely not. My family will take care of me at home. Her eyes slid back to me, then sharp despite the pain meds. "You'll stay with me?" she said. "Of course." 10 years ago, I would have said yes without thinking, rearranged my schedule, moved into her guest room with a suitcase and a smile I didn't feel. This time, I folded my hands. "I can help some afternoons," I said, "around my work, but I can't be here full time." She stared. "That's what daughters do," she snapped. I held her gaze. "I'm not your daughter," I said softly. "Remember?" Jake inhaled sharply. He started, warning in his voice. "No," I said. "She drew that line, not me." Margaret's mouth opened and closed. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed. "After everything I've—" "Mom, stop," Jake said. She went still. He'd never cut her off like that in front of me before. "Emily has a job," he said. "Noah, a life. We'll arrange home health. Jenna and I will work out a schedule." "She's supposed to help," Margaret cried. "That's what wives do." He looked at me, then back at her. "She is helping," he said quietly, "by not breaking herself in half for everyone anymore." Her eyes filled with tears, not the soft kind, the furious kind. "I knew she'd turn you against me," she whispered. But for once, I didn't rush to make peace between them. I sat in the chair and let them have the fight they'd been avoiding for a decade. The next month was a test for all of us. Margaret had her surgery. She came home with a walker and a list of instructions. Jake and Jenna set up a chart. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, home health nurse. Tuesdays, Jenna. Thursdays, Jake after work. And me, I asked. Jake glanced at me, then at the schedule. Whatever you can choose to do, he said, not what Mom demands. So I chose. I brought meals twice a week, simple, easy to freeze. I sat with her while the nurse changed dressings, asked a few careful questions, made sure she wasn't being neglected. But I did not sleep over. I did not do laundry until midnight. I did not bring Noah every day as entertainment. Margaret did not like it. One Thursday, when Jake dropped off a bag of groceries, she hissed, "Your wife is heartless. I would have moved in with your father's mother in a heartbeat." Jake sat on the arm of her recliner. "Dad's mother treated you like a daughter." He said, "You've treated Emily like a housekeeper." I heard this later, from him, nervous, testing out his new backbone. "I can't believe I said that." He admitted. "How did she react?" I asked. He gave a little half smile. "She cried." He said, "Then she told me I was being manipulated." "By me?" I asked. He nodded. I sighed. "Let her cry," I said. "For once, you don't have to fix it." It is a strange thing, my dear, to watch a man finally hold his own mother accountable. Strange and necessary. Let me pause you here, my dear. We love to talk about strong women, don't we? But can we talk for a moment about strong sons? Not the ones who bark at their mothers for sport. The ones who quietly move their chair. Jake is late to the party. Yes. He let things slide for years. Yes. But when he finally stands up, he does something very important. He stops using his wife as a shield between himself and his mother. That is the beginning of real change. Not just for Emily, for him. One afternoon, while the nurse was there, Margaret called me into her bedroom. Her walker squeaked as she shuffled to the dresser. "Since you're so busy with your big important job," she said, sarcasm dripping, "I suppose I should get my affairs in order without expecting your help." "I think that's wise," I said. She narrowed her eyes. She pulled open the top drawer and took out a folder. "This is my will," she said. "I want you to see where you stand." Old me would have said, "You don't have to show me that." New me let her. She opened it to the first page. "I leave my house and all personal property to my children, Jacob and Jennifer, equally," she read. "I leave nothing to Emily as she is not blood." She looked up, satisfied. "Clear enough?" she asked. I studied the page. "That's fine," I said. "I have my own life to build." She blinked. "No tears?" she asked. "No begging?" "No, but I've done so much for you." I shrugged. "I'm not competing for your things." I said, "You made it clear I'm not part of that circle. I believe you." Her lips tightened. "You're very smug lately," she snapped. "No," I said calmly. "I'm very done." I turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth," I added, "you can cut me out of your will all you want, but Noah will remember who showed up for him. That's a different kind of inheritance." Her face flushed. She slammed the folder shut. For the first time since I'd known her, I saw fear in her eyes, not of death, but of being forgotten by the one person whose opinion actually mattered. Noah is not a dramatic child. He is kind, quiet, observant, the type who notices when the dog's bowl is empty and fills it without being asked. One Friday, after school, Margaret called. "I haven't seen my grandson in a week," she complained. "Bring him over." Jake was at work. It was just me and Noah at the kitchen table, math homework spread out. Do you want to go to Nana's? I asked him, neutral. He bit his pencil. Will you come too? He asked. I can drop you off, I said. I have some things to do here. He frowned. She always says mean stuff about you when you're not there, he said quietly. My heart stuttered. What do you mean? I asked. He looked down at his paper. Last time, she told Aunt Jenny you're ungrateful and took Daddy away from the family, he mumbled. She thought I was playing my game and not listening. He glanced up. I don't like it when people talk bad about you, he said. So I don't really want to go. I swallowed. You don't have to, I said. You're allowed to say no. He nodded, relieved. I picked up the phone. Hey, Margaret, I said when she answered. Noah's staying home today. He's tired. You always keep him from me, she snapped. No, I said. He heard you talk about me. He doesn't like it. Talk to your grandson about that, not me. I hung up. My hands shook, not from fear, from the feeling of finally putting the responsibility where it belonged. The crack became a break at church. We all attended the same small congregation on the edge of town. For years, Sundays had been a show, us in a neat row, Margaret holding Noah's hand, Jake between us like a bridge. On this particular Sunday, we sat in our usual pew. After the service, as people mingled, Pastor Tom came over. Good to see you, Margaret, he said. How's recovery? She sighed dramatically. Oh, you know, Pastor, she said, I'd be doing better if my family supported me the way I supported them. He glanced at me, confused. Jake stiffened. What do you mean? Pastor Tom asked gently. She leaned in. Well, when my mother-in-law was sick, I took her into my home, she said loudly. I washed her hair and bathed her and never complained. All I asked was the same when I fell. But some people, she flicked her eyes at me, don't believe in sacrificing for family these days. A few heads turned. Heat rushed up my neck. Before I could speak, Noah piped up, clear as a bell. Mom did help you, he said. She made you food and checked your bandages and drove you to the doctor when Daddy couldn't. You just got mad because she wouldn't move in like a nurse. Silence fell around us. Margaret flushed. Children shouldn't interrupt adults, she snapped. Pastor Tom held up a hand. Seems like Noah noticed his mother caring. He said gently, that sounds like family to me. He smiled at me. You've been through a lot, he added. Make sure you're not asking more than people have to give. We walked to the car in silence. In the front seat, Jake exhaled. I didn't realize he'd heard so much, he said. He hears everything, I replied. He just finally said it out loud. I want you to see what just happened, my dear. For 10 years, Margaret controlled the story. She was the martyr, the giver, the long-suffering mother. In one small moment, the child she thought was her audience told the truth. Children are excellent mirrors. They don't care about community reputation. They care about who shows up and who doesn't. When a grandson says, my mom was there, no amount of dramatic sighing can erase it. That kind of truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs a quiet stage. That night, Margaret called Jake. I was in the kitchen packing Noah's lunch when I heard his voice rise. Mom, stop, he said. I'm not divorcing my wife because she wouldn't sleep on your couch. I froze. He paced the living room, phone to his ear. She disrespected me in front of the pastor. Margaret cried loud enough that I could hear. She's turned Noah against me. You have to do something. Jacob. I am, he said. I'm setting boundaries. I almost dropped the sandwich. Either you fix this, she snapped, or you're choosing her over your own mother. He closed his eyes. I'm not playing that game. He said, I'm choosing my marriage. My child. You can either respect my wife or see us less. It's your call. Silence. Then I knew she'd poison you. He hung up, jaw clenched. He stood there for a minute, chest rising and falling. Then he looked at me. I'm sorry, he said, for how long I let her get away with this. I didn't say, it's okay. It wasn't. I didn't say, you didn't know. He did, on some level. I just nodded. Thank you for finally choosing, I said. Margaret chose. For the next month, she refused to see us. No Sundays, no calls, no birthday card for me, which was fine. I could do without the yearly scented lotion. Jenna texted occasionally. Mom is sulking, she wrote. She keeps saying you're tearing the family apart. Telling the truth doesn't tear anything apart. I replied. It shows where the cracks already were. Our house felt lighter. We had lazy Sundays at home, pancakes in pajamas, board games on the floor. No rushing to make casseroles. No bracing for comments. One Saturday, Noah curled up next to me on the couch. I like it better when we stay home, he said. You laugh more. I realized I could breathe all the way into my stomach again. The cost? Someone who had never truly accepted me now ignored me on purpose. It was a price I was willing to pay. You can only ignore a daughter-in-law and a grandson for so long before people notice. Margaret's friends started asking questions. At the beauty salon, at church, at the grocery store. Where's that cute grandson? We haven't seen him lately. How's Emily? She always helped at the bake sale. I heard your Jake spoke out at church. Good for him, standing by his wife. The story she'd built, with herself on the pedestal, started to wobble. One afternoon, Jenna called me, whispering. Mom's mad at everyone now, she said. Her friends told her she was being too hard on you. She says they're all brainwashed by this new generation. I snorted. This new generation that believes wives are people. I asked. Jenna sighed. I'm trying to stay neutral, she said, but I think she went too far. You've always been there for her. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from Jenna. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. Margaret's loneliness was no longer my emergency. It was the natural consequence of treating people as staff instead of family. Here's something we don't say enough, my dear. Some loneliness is self-inflicted. We are allowed to feel sad for someone and still step out of the blast radius of their choices. Emily is not plotting her mother-in-law's downfall. She's simply refusing to soften the landing. That's not vengeance. That's gravity. Life has a sense of timing. 6 weeks into this Cold War, my phone buzzed at work. County General. Mrs. Wilson, a nurse asked, you're listed as Margaret Wilson's emergency contact. My stomach clenched. Yes. She was brought in with chest pains. The nurse said, she's stable now, but we'd like family here to discuss next steps. I stared at my computer screen. I'll call her children. I said, they should be the primary contacts. That's you, the nurse said, on the form. I almost laughed. Of course. For all her talk of blood, when it mattered, I was the one she'd written down, the one she trusted to show up. I called Jake. He met me at the hospital, face pale. Thank you for telling me, he said. We walked in together. Margaret lay in another too-bright room, wires attached to her chest, oxygen hissing softly. She looked smaller. For a moment, grief and frustration wrestled in my chest. This was still the woman who'd raised the man I loved, the woman who'd rocked my baby, even if she'd claimed him too hard. Her eyes opened. She saw Jake first, then me. Of course, she saw her son first. She always had. The doctor left us alone. Jake sat on one side of the bed, me on the other. Margaret looked from him to me, then away. "You didn't have to come," she muttered. "Actually, I did. I said, you put my name on your emergency forms." She winced. "They made me pick someone," she said. "Your name was Habit." Jake stared at her. "Mom," he said quietly, "why is Emily the person you trust in a crisis, but not real family the rest of the time?" She looked at him, eyes tired. "It's different," she said. "How?" he asked. "Emergency is emergency," she said weakly. "Family is convenience." I finished. Approval? Control? She flinched. "I married your son. I went on. I carried your grandson. I've cooked in your kitchen, washed your dishes, driven you to appointments. I've done more for you than some people with your blood type." Tears slid down her temples. "I never asked you to," she whispered. "Yes, you did," I said. "Every Sunday, every favor, every guilt trip." Jake reached for my hand. "Mom," he said, "you don't have to like me choosing my wife, but I'm not going back." She swallowed. "I don't know how to fix this," she admitted. "For a start," I said, "stop using real family as a weapon. Start taking responsibility for the hurt you caused." She shut her eyes. "I'm old," she whispered. "So is the habit of making other people pay for your feelings." I replied. I stood. "I'll be in the waiting room." I said, "I came because you put my name down. I'll stay because I don't want Jake to do this alone. That's what I mean by family." I left them there, mother and son, with the truth sitting between them like a third person. It was small. You might have missed it if you weren't listening for it. 2 days after she was discharged, we visited Margaret at her house. The living room smelled faintly of antiseptic and old flowers. She sat in her recliner, a blanket over her legs. "Noah," she said as he came close, "come here and give Nana a hug." He came, shy but willing. She hugged him, then looked at me. "Emily," she said, voice stiff, "could you get us some tea?" 10 years ago, I would have hopped up. This time, I met her eyes. "Jake can," I said. "I'm visiting." She stared. Then, to my surprise, she nodded slowly. "You're right," she said. "Jacob be useful." Jake raised his eyebrows, then went to the kitchen. When we were alone, she cleared her throat. "I've been talking to Pastor Tom," she said. "I waited. He says I might have been unkind," she went on, each word dragged out, "that I used the word family like a knife." My chest tightened. "He's not wrong," I said. She took a breath. "I won't say I was wrong about everything," she muttered, "but I was wrong to say you're not family. You are, whether I like it or not." It wasn't warm. It wasn't wrapped in a hug. But for Margaret, it was an earthquake. "Thank you," I said simply. I didn't rush in with, "It's okay." It wasn't. But it was a start. Let me say this plain. My dear, some apologies are beautiful. Some sound like they had to crawl through barbed wire to reach your ears. You are not required to make the second kind prettier. You are allowed to take the words, put them on the shelf, and see if the actions match. Emily is not welcoming Margaret back to the throne. She's simply acknowledging a crack in the armor. That's enough for now. From that day on, things were different. Not perfect, not a Hallmark movie, just different. We set clear rules. Sundays were our choice. Some weeks we joined Margaret and Jenna. Some weeks we stayed home or went to the park. If Margaret made a cutting comment, I didn't swallow it. I'd say, "That's unkind," and change the subject or leave. When she tried to guilt Jake with phrases like, "If you loved me, he'd answer, 'I love you. I'm still not doing that.'" She didn't like it, but she adjusted. She had to, because for the first time, we were willing to walk away from the table. One afternoon, when we left her house after a short visit, Jake squeezed my hand in the car. "I see it now," he said quietly. "All the ways she put everything on you. I let her." I nodded. "I can't go back and fix those 10 years, he said, "but I can make sure the next 10 look different." "That's all I'm asking," I replied. A year later, Pastor Tom announced a church directory update. "Family photos next Sunday," he said. "All households welcome." Old me would have stood behind Margaret, one more smiling face in her clan. New me sat at my own kitchen table, filling out the form. Household name: Wilson, Jake, Emily, Noah. We showed up early, dressed nicely but not stiff. The photographer posed us, Jake on one side, me on the other, Noah in the middle, all of us with arms around each other. As we stepped away, I saw Margaret arrive with Jenna and her twins. She hesitated when she saw us. Then she came over. "Get one with all of us," she said loudly. "Family photo." The photographer looked at me. I smiled, polite. "You go ahead," I said. "We already did ours." Margaret frowned. "Well, we can do both," she said. I shook my head. "One is enough," I replied. "We are our own family. Margaret, remember?" She started to argue, then stopped. Something in my face must have told her this was not up for debate. She stepped back. For the first time, the directory would show the truth. We were not an extension of her household. We were our own. Holidays are where old patterns go to die, my dear, or to resurrect themselves if you're not careful. Thanksgiving came. Margaret called a week before. "I assume you'll be doing the turkey," she said. "Actually, I wasn't. We're hosting at our place this year," I said. "Small, just us, and maybe a friend from work who doesn't have family nearby." Silence. "You're not coming here?" she asked, scandalized. "Not this year," I said. "You're welcome to join us, or have Jenna, or your friends. But I'm not doing a 20-person meal in your kitchen." "You're breaking tradition," she accused. "I'm making a new one," I replied. We ended up with a table of 6, me, Jake, Noah, my friend Carla from work, and her teenage son. We laughed. We ate. We went around the table and said one thing we were grateful for. When it was my turn, I said, "I'm grateful for clear eyes and second chances." I didn't say, "I'm grateful I finally stopped trying to pass a test that was rigged," but I thought it. Margaret had Thanksgiving with Jenna. We saw the photos on Facebook. Pretty table. 4 smiles. I felt a twinge of sadness. Then I looked at my sink, empty and quiet, and felt something else. Peace. It came one afternoon when I dropped off a casserole. Margaret opened the door, sniffing. "What's this?" she asked. "Chicken and rice," I said. "Figure you could freeze some for later." She took it, suspicious. "Why are you being nice?" she asked. "I'm not being nice," I said. "I'm being decent." She sighed. "You're a strange one," she muttered. "Sometimes I think if you were more like real family, things would be easier." There it was, the old phrase. It didn't slice this time. It just hung there, heavy and sad. "Real family shows up," I said. "I have. Real family apologizes. You did once. Real family changes. You're trying. That's all I can work with." She looked at me for a long moment. I don't know how to be different, she admitted quietly. You don't have to be a whole new person, I said. Just stop punishing people when they don't play by your rules. She laughed once, bitter. You sound like Pastor Tom, she said. Then maybe you should listen, I replied. We like a clean ending, don't we, my dear? Mother-in-law sees the light, throws her arms around the daughter-in-law, sobs. You were my real daughter all along. Life is messier. Sometimes the best you get is, I was wrong about this one thing. Sometimes the only change is, I hurt you. I shouldn't have. And then, very slowly, different choices. This story isn't about turning Margaret into a saint. It's about Emily finally treating herself like family. The rest is extra. 2 years after the sink comment, something unexpected happened. My boss asked me to lead a small support group at the community center. For women dealing with family stress, she said, in-laws, adult children, aging parents, you're good at cutting through the noise. I almost laughed. Me? The woman who'd scrubbed dishes for a decade to earn a seat at a table that was never going to be hers? But then I thought about all I'd learned, about emergency contacts, about wills, about boundaries that hurt at first and heal later. So I said yes. On Thursday nights, a small circle of women sat in folding chairs and told the truth. My mother-in-law criticizes everything I do. My grown son treats my house like a hotel. My daughter says I'm toxic every time I say no. I didn't give them magic phrases. I didn't give them revenge scripts. I gave them what I'd used, questions. What if you believed her when she showed you who she is? What would you stop doing today if you accepted that you're not real family to them and built your life accordingly? Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they said, I've never thought about it like that. I went home from those meetings tired and full. I was no longer just the woman who stepped back from a sink. I was a woman who could say, I've been there. Here's how I got out. He shrugged. Health class, he said. We're talking about boundaries. I told them my mom taught me to respect women, starting with herself. He jogged off to take photos with his friends. Margaret watched him go. You did good with him, she said softly. We did, I almost said. But then I remembered who had been in the kitchen with me all those years, who had listened to him cry over math homework, who had taught him to cook eggs and say sorry and notice when someone was tired. Thank you, I said. So here I am, my dear, sitting at my own table in my own house with a cup of tea that I made for myself because I wanted it, not because anyone else demanded it. The phone sits quiet. If it rings and it's Margaret, I answer. Sometimes we talk about Noah, sometimes about her doctor appointments. Sometimes we just sit in silence, two women who hurt each other in different ways, both too stubborn to say everything, but able, finally, to say enough. She does not call me daughter. I do not call her mom. We are two branches connected by the same trunk, whether we like it or not. The difference now is this. I no longer stand at her sink to prove I belong. I know where I belong. Here, with my son, with my husband, who finally moved his chair, with the women in my Thursday circle, with myself. My mother-in-law once said I wasn't real family. So I quietly stepped back. Her son noticed first, then my son. Then, slowly I did too. I realized I'd been treating everyone else like family and myself like the outsider. Never again. My dear, thank you for walking with me through Emily's story. if you're listening to this and something in your chest is tight, I want to leave you with a few questions. Who have you been trying to convince that you belong long after they told you in words or actions that you don't? What would stepping back quietly, firmly, without drama look like in your life? And if you stopped fighting for a chair at their table, what kind of table could you build for yourself? Tell me in the comments. My dear, I read every word. And if you want more stories of women who stop shrinking and start standing, hit subscribe before you go. Your next story is already waiting.